Commodore fans, are you ready? It's time for another episode of the Vandy247 podcast on the 440 Sports Network. Keep it locked right here for the best Vanderbilt coverage. Whether it's Clark Lee on the gridiron, Mark Byington and Shea Ralph on the hardwood, or Tim Corbin on the diamond, the Vandy247 crew has you covered. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do. Also, like this video and subscribe to the YouTube channel. That's free and easy to do. Follow the crew on Twitter, Apple Podcast, and Spotify for podcast episodes. Lastly, if you're interested in sponsoring the show, email Chris Lee at chrislee70@gmail.com. And now, pull up a chair. It's time for another episode of the Vandy247 podcast.
Welcome into Vandy247 Live here on the Believe Podcast Network. I'm your host, Billy Derrick, alongside Chris Lee on a beautiful Wednesday morning in Nashville. We're going to be talking a lot of baseball today, a lot of basketball. We're talking everything today. We've got the portal for football opening today. We've already got one player to enter. We've got some basketball portal stuff to talk about. And of course, we've got baseball to talk about. So I'll kind of mix these reads in throughout. We'll start with baseball, probably be mostly baseball today. Our baseball coverage is brought to you by Sanders Moving, leaders among moving companies in Nashville and the surrounding area. Their team of professional movers are focused on delivering efficient, hassle-free moving at an affordable price. Whether you're moving across town or across the country, Sanders Moving has you covered. Visit them at tedrsandersmoving.com. Another guy on the move is Chris Lee. Staying busy. Got the heat of SEC baseball right now. Obviously, Vanderbilt with a big series this weekend against Georgia. Chris, that should be fun. I mean, gonna be a lot of talent, a lot of power on one side of the field at least, and we'll see what Vanderbilt can do. But a lot going on right now.
Yeah, there's been a lot going on. I've had some people ask, where have you been? I don't think I've been on in 2 months, which wasn't intentional. Southeastern 16 is taking the bulk of my time lately, but hope to be back more regularly going forward than I have been. So, yeah, good to be back.
I want to start with baseball and with your knowledge around the league, Chris. This series coming up, I think we've had measuring sticks this year for Vanderbilt. I think the one at Auburn was a good read at where they're at. They turn around and sweep Texas A&M. They sweep Florida. We obviously saw what happened against Oklahoma, but they get a win last night over Lipscomb. I feel like they're walking off every midweek, by the way. Yeah. I feel like that's been a common theme. They played some good midweek teams, and Vanderbilt hasn't lost a midweek game, and that matters. That really does matter come regional time, selection Sunday or selection Monday. So what just baseball, I know you said you haven't been here really in the last month and a half, couple of months. What have you seen from the baseball team? I know you've been there, here or there, and been covering the team. What have you seen?
Well, let's start with last night. I know midweek wins are things that people take for granted. I'm not sure Vanderbilt's ever gone unbeaten in the midweek. I feel like it has once or twice, but like even the national title teams stumbled somewhere in the midweek. So I think to be unbeaten, I want to say LSU is unbeaten, and there's another team or two in the league, but like even Texas, which is number one in the country right now, has lost twice in the midweek. So I think that speaks to Vanderbilt's pitching depth, which I think, and I will get to some of the issues and the things that people have gotten up in arms about, because I do think those are important topics. But I think people have slept on how many really good arms they have, and you saw that last night. Austin Nye's got an ERA of $1.47 right now. Been a great story for them after not pitching all last year. And I think at the end, Tommy O'Rourke, a kid who missed a couple of years, pitched in the College World Series at Stanford when Vanderbilt was there in 2021. To end the night, and look, take all the. There's a lot of bad feeling, a lot of panic about the baseball team, and I get that. But I'm just going to read you the things that probably matter the most right now, and then I'll get to the issues that everybody is concerned about. Right. Okay. 27-10 right now, 8-7 in the SEC, 7th in the RPI this morning, number 4 in strength of schedule, 8-8 in quad 1, 4-2 in quad 2, no losses in quad 3 or quad 4. Like there's a lot of teams like Auburn has lost a couple of quad 4 games and probably would be a national seed this morning. LSU has lost a quad 4 game. So I think there's a lot of good things there in the metrics, even if the product at times is lacking in certain ways. And I think this is the thing that people maybe are missing with the team a little bit. I'm going to go to the NCAA pitching stats and see the updates as of this morning. But as of yesterday, and excuse me while I pull this up, here are Vanderbilt's ranks nationally in certain categories. Earned run average. Vanderbilt after last night is 11. I wish they did run average because there's some teams that'll shave a run off that make a lot of errors. Vanderbilt's earned run average and its run average are very close. So it's, I think, 11th nationally in earned run average against that tough schedule with the 369.
Yeah.
So you got that. I think, look at some other things. Hits allowed per 9 innings. Vanderbilt is number 3 in the country. Was number 1 yesterday. Fell down by just a couple of spots. They're within one good game of retaking the top. So I think one thing that people sort of overlook in the power era is their pitching has been good at preventing hits and hard hit balls. Vanderbilt's hit 32 home runs after last night, but I think it's given up even less than that. I'm going to look and validate this, and I'm sorry to ramble, but there are some I think talking points with this team that are pretty interesting. Those are a couple of them. Now for the concern, and boy, is it a concern this weekend? Georgia's got 100 home runs. The thought in getting in a slugfest with Georgia is a little concerning. I've seen some interesting stuff at the plate the last couple of – I thought Oklahoma, game 3 was kind of a swing from the heels. Let's see if we can get a couple balls out of the yard, which they did. They struck out more. Last night they struck out more than they usually did too, and the power did not come to. I'm really interested to see what the hitting approach is this weekend against Georgia.
Yeah, you look at it and it's a mismatch offensively. You mentioned Vanderbilt's pitching numbers, Chris. Vandy has pitched it better than Georgia as a whole. If you look at the ERA,
a lot better.
Vandy's team ERA 3.69, as you said. Georgia at 4.77, and that surprised me a little bit with Wes Johnson's background in the pitching world. That's an avenue. Now, I think Vanderbilt has lucked out here that Hawkins Field is not necessarily a hitter's ballpark. Teams can turn it into a hitter's ballpark, and Georgia could very well do that. But if Vanderbilt pitches it really well, they play defense well, and they hit opportunistically, per se, they've got a shot. And again, they're 17-3 at home. So, this is huge to see where they're at against another elite. We saw it against, I guess you could say Auburn. But, I mean, Chris, they haven't really played one of the top 3-4 yet. Right, they still got to play Tennessee.
Yeah,
they don't have Texas. Obviously, they're playing Georgia this weekend. Arkansas. That's the team I was forgetting. They have played Arkansas, of course. But this is a massive opportunity for them. And I want to go now to and we've got a ton of mailbag questions for baseball specifically. The basketball portal has been interesting. Before we get to these mailbag questions, I know you got to be out around 11:17. What have you made of that, Chris? Because I think right away, it was a little slow, but all of a sudden I'm kind of putting the roster together in this team. And again, there's more guys to flow in here, but I'm thinking of words like long, athletic. And again, maybe shooting won't be their strength again, but you think of a guy like Mike James, who's really athletic. And I know he didn't play last year. That should be interesting. Frankie Collins, a really good defender. Again, not a great shooter. But he is 6'2", and we're hearing a better finisher than a guy like Hogard was last year. And then Washington, a really long player. That's the guy they needed. That's the type of player they needed. And then Nicholson, So what have you made, Chris, real quick, of that portal haul, and we'll get into these mailbag questions.
Yeah, I mean, you could see how big of an issue size was for them, and I know size is de-emphasized in modern basketball, and I understand why, but they can't have you and I playing the post. There are limits to how much that can, not be a problem. And they ran up against it. They faced a St. Mary's team that had a lot of that. It ended up probably deciding the game. You saw them run into that. I think Arkansas's length gave them an issue. Alabama's length gave them an issue. Clearly, Mark Byington said, I see it too, went out to find some guys. I think what he's done so far is pretty well. It feels to me like he's having to moneyball together a roster. I don't think that their NIL budget is competitive with the top half of the league. There's some questions whether it's competitive with the middle half of the league. And I do think the way that people have thought you win at Vanderbilt is putting shooters together. And Billy, it feels like a while since there's been an elite shooter in Memorial Gym wearing black and gold. Now, Tyler Nickel is a guy who I think really took some big strides, and they've got that guy on the roster. But I think you're right, and I need I would need to double check some of the numbers. Feels like, landing a Chaz Lanier or one of those blue chip guards that's a high scorer and does it with efficiency that other teams are spending big bucks on. I have some questions as to whether that kind of player is off limits for them because of money.
Yeah, and look, I think Washington is a guy probably at the top of the heap of this class. You also look at Frankie Collins potentially. The word Moneyball, that sounds accurate to me. And this offseason, it's another busy offseason for Byington. I don't know that this is much different than last offseason for him and his staff, and I don't know that they wanted that. I don't know that any staff wants it, but at this point, you got to do what you got to do. And the freshmen, again, until Vanderbilt can bring it, that's the other thing, Chris. Jalen Dean Vines and Jaden Leverett probably not going to play a whole lot. I know there's Nick Lewis out there. I don't think he's landed anywhere yet. There's still the potential for him coming in and making an impact, but as long as Vandy's not bringing in freshmen that are immediate impact, I know you had Tanner last year. It's portal heavy every offseason, so that's where they're at. But where we're at is we got a lot of mailbag questions, and I don't want to leave off any of those. I know we're somewhat in a time crunch, but I do want to tell you about Sutherland and Belk. They are a long-running sponsor of Vandy247, family-owned injury law firm. They sponsor the chat room and the mailbag. If your loved one has been hurt or in an accident, give Taylor or Russell a call at 615-846-6200 to learn about your rights and whether they can help. Our guest line with Chris Lee today, brought to you by John Levin, good friend of the show, Wobble Bond Dickinson. Thanks to student athletes at Vanderbilt for their dedication, effort, and hard work. Guest line also brought to you by Yeaman Packaging Systems, leaders in end-of-line packaging automation. All right. Pessimistic Door leads us off with the current men's basketball transfer class. Try to predict the starting five and the backups. So right now, Chris, tell me if you disagree. I would go Frankie Collins at the 1, Mike James at the 2, Tyler Nickel at the 3, Devin McLaughlin at the 4, and Jalen Washington at the 5.
Sounds reasonable. Anyway, Tyler Tanner is in there to start.
That's the other thing. You could go Tanner at the 1 to start, and you could even play Tanner and Collins together. And we know how Byington likes to rotate. I would go Collins. He's played so much basketball. And again, maybe Tanner, it's a situation where he ends up playing a lot anyway, whether it's a combo guard spot. But you also have, if in this, Tyler Harris guy from Washington, who there's been a ton of talk about, there's a chance there. And he's a 6'8", 6'9", long guard that they could also bring in and make an impact as well. But that's a good point on Tanner, Chris. I think he's kind of an X factor this offseason and coming into next season. If he can really step up, that'd be big for them.
Yeah, I mean, he's a big piece either way, right? I mean, you need at least 9 good players. So I don't really care at this point whether he starts or whether he comes off the bench. He's one of those guys that you need to fit in a slot somewhere.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, right now, again, I don't want to leave off Nicholson. He would be a bench piece, an important bench piece. It'd be interesting to see how much Jaden Leverett plays. McLaughlin obviously starting. We'll see. Kajani Wright's going to be an interesting guy to watch as well. Is he on the roster? What do they think about him? Don't want to forget about Jalen Dean Vines either. Mentioned Tyler Tanner. So that's kind of what you're looking at for next year.
Here's an interesting thing too. And I don't know if Tyler Tanner's a true point guard or might be just kind of a unique piece, but Frankie Collins' assist to turnover ratio was under 2 at TCU. Now, not much under 2, but under 2. You would like to see your point guard maybe a little better in that regard, which Tanner was that with flying colors a year ago. No, look, in a bigger role, there's going to be more turnovers as more is expected of you. But that is something to keep an eye on.
Man, we should have brought Elaine on for this next one, Chris. Pessimistic door. Why has Shea Ralph been so quiet in the transfer market so far? I can't really answer that. I know Ayanna Moore hit the portal, and I know the 3 players they were prioritizing, which was no surprise, is Michaela Blakes, Camille Pierre, and Sasha Washington. They're coming back. But in terms of players coming in, I'm not sure. I'm sure Elena has put some stuff up on the board. If you want to go check that, maybe I'll shoot her a text to give an update if you guys need that. Let's see here. Here we go. Can of worms. VU Hicks 66. When will the NIL and the portal stuff be addressed and fixed by the NCAA or conference commissioners? Man, we haven't talked about that ever, have we, Chris?
Well,
it is interesting with the Nico stuff. Is this a tipping point for change? And boy, have we had a few tipping points, but you just wonder, does that inspire change? Not that anything, so far hasn't already.
Well, that's the $1 million question. I think the more pertinent question right now, are we seeing a little bit of a market correction in terms of what guys can get? Because up until now, they could just hold teams hostage and a lot of times get what they wanted. Tennessee just kind of put its foot down on that one. And now you're hearing like that Tulane backed out of it and that the value he's got is not near what he was wanting. So I think, first of all rules and stuff aside, that's one of the things I'm watching. Look, I was in higher ed for a long time. I have many criticisms of higher ed, one of which is that people in higher ed are very ideological. They are not pragmatic. They sit in a bubble world where you don't deal with reality. You deal with ideas and noble concepts in your head that don't really line up with the real world. That is who runs higher ed. Promotions and things in higher ed are not always dictated by competency and success and pragmatism. They are dictated by other things. Leaders of higher ed and the NCAA are in charge of this. It's been a deal for 4 years. They still cannot pragmatically come to grips with what things are, why things are the way they are, and also involving other people in the discussion. Because if we're going to agree on something, Billy, if you're not going to agree on something, you got to come to the table with the things you want, and I've got to come to the table with the things I want. And we meet in the middle and figure it out, and we either get there or we go our separate ways. I feel like, and I don't know if it's unionization or what the technical word is, but there's bargaining power on the other side of the table in the players and the athletes that don't really have representation. People have hung their hats on this house thing for a while. Well, that's going to solve everything, and the money's going to be capped. What happens when one guy goes to court and says, you know what, this doesn't fit your model the way you want to do it, and X wants to pay me Y for doing whatever. And I know they're trying to regulate NIL and make it more like legit advertising deals, which, by the way, you could have seen from day one that this was going to play out this way.
Yeah.
And some schools adapted to it very well. The one you and I cover kind of had its head in the sand for 2 or 3 years and got behind. But where I'm going with this is I don't know that the settlement is going to bring the order and structure to this the way people at Vanderbilt and the way the people at other schools think it is. And so that is the big thing. I think if you can somehow get the parties in a room and say we need this and that, and you get representation on both sides, you can have a fix here that works long term. Otherwise, I think we're still looking, even with the House settlement, if that all goes through finally, I still think you are potentially looking at a lot of chaos. And right now, what you have is an uncapped year. Even if the settlement did go through and money was capped in different sports, what you've had right now is a window where people could pay anybody whatever they wanted. And the schools that were poised to deal with that kind of reality are probably the ones that are going to do well, and the ones that probably were banking on the House settlement being the end-all be-all are probably the ones that will suffer.
Well, I think it's interesting with the Nico situation specifically. You could say it's backfired on Tennessee. Now, again, I'm not blaming Tennessee's collective and Josh Heupel. I think they deserve some blame, but placing all of the blame on Nico and Team Nico, I don't think is right. Tennessee was really the first school to bring on a player with a big money deal. $8 million. What was it? $8 million over 4 years, Chris. Yeah. And it was about money. Let's face it. It was about money. It was about potential. He hadn't done anything. He was making money as a senior in high school. So you mentioned the market correction. Is there a realistic correction in this too, where you start to think more reasonably about some of these deals you make with players? But man, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. And we've got
there is a realistic thing, but it only becomes when the people that are running this become realistic and stop being ideologues. Right. And it's not going to be divided along lines of I know some people want it to, including Vanderbilt, gender equity and those kind of things. People have values. And I've always said I would love to see what would happen if you had a period like this. And it's a lot of fun, but like, what would somebody pay somebody if they could pay him any amount of money? And at what point does that fall apart? And what you have right now, Billy, it's like Black Friday, where everybody lines up outside of, Target or whatever. And the doors open and there's no security guards inside. And some people will go through the registers and check out and not bump and push people on the way into the store. And some people will knock people over and walk out of the store with, a couple $1,000s worth of merchandise because nobody's stopping them at the door. Until you put the things in place to deal with those realities and bring some order to it, this is what you're going to get. And I just don't know that I think that there's a chance a year from now that we look up and maybe Tennessee putting its foot down on the money it's going to pay Nico, maybe that brings a little bit of order to it and something, or maybe we're sitting here and it's exactly the same thing.
All right, let's get back to Vandy. Ben Wheeler asks, who do you think will be the next basketball commit? Have you heard anything about A.K. Okereke? He's been pretty silent for a while. I had heard good things about Okereke, really going back a couple of weeks ago. Haven't heard much as of late. But, Chris, I would say the Tyler Harris kid from Washington. I know another one to watch is Tatum Connerway from Troy, who visited Player of the Year in that conference.
Troy,
who's a good player. Those are the two I would watch for. At this point, I don't know that you need enough. I mean, you unless you made a decision on Kajani Wright, to where you he's not coming back. But if he's back, you've got Wright, Nicholson, and Washington in the post, and McLaughlin. Yeah. So I'm sure you maybe bring in another bench post guy, but really it's about guards at this point for me.
Like if they land a couple of those guys, it feels like they've got enough pieces to be okay. It may be good. I'd have to look at it. I haven't gone through everybody, with the fine-tooth comb on everything, and I will. I'm kind of at the point I'm just kind of waiting for it to end and take inventory. Because, look, I mean, I don't even know.
Well, because you did a good job. I mean, I was because you made a whole graph and sent it to Joey and I of here's their stats from last year. Here's why I think they could be good this year.
Yeah.
And I think, but I mean, you can't do that. There's no point doing that now.
Well, and I'll get there. And it's like, how much work do you want to put in on it right now? Because a guy can commit and back out in a month or back out, it's just, it's like, how much time and effort do you want to put into this till you know exactly what it's going to be? But I'll probably get there pretty soon.
Okay. I want to make sure I don't miss any basketball ones here. Let's see. Oh, Nick Lewis. Mo Kane, 31. Have you heard anything about Nick Lewis? What are the biggest needs for men's basketball right now? Again, I think it's guards. I wouldn't be surprised if they still bring in a depth post player, but to me, it's guards, and Nick Lewis is in that mix. Again, he hasn't landed anywhere yet. Decommitted from Xavier after Sean Miller left. And Chris, I'm interested. I was thinking about that situation with Nick Lewis, because Sean Miller leaves Xavier for Texas. Nick Lewis was committed to Xavier. Either Sean and then you saw Patino land at Xavier. So did Lewis talk to Miller, and Miller went, hey, did Miller decide he's not taking him with him to Texas? And did Patino decide that he's not taking him at Xavier either? I'm interested to see what went down. I mean, with these, you feel for the kids. You feel for a kid like Nick Lewis in this situation who has probably had to scramble a little bit. But he's a good player. And again, I haven't heard a ton. I've heard, obviously, he's visited. Vandy's got an offer out there. And, this is kind of a rare situation where Vanderbilt will probably offer him some money. I mean, who's not offering anybody money anymore? But in the sense of a high school player, Chris, this could be one of Vanderbilt's first, bigger money gets, at least comparable to some of them that they've had.
for whatever that's worth right now.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm not really hearing a ton on Nick Lewis other than that there's an offer out. Okay. I think that's all the basketball. Let's go to baseball. Cousin CJ, I know we will inevitably lose some baseball commits to the draft every year, but how much NIL will Tim Corbin need to compete with these MLB contracts, specifically the first round guys and maybe some second round guys as well? Is there any upside to coming to Vandy versus immediately going pro? I mean, that
is the $1 million question. If people haven't been paying attention, and I think this is one reason I am not as down on their future. Like, if you guys have been paying attention to what Ty Blankmeyer has been doing in recruiting, he is killing it. Now, how many of those kids can get on campus? I asked somebody yesterday because BA did the thing. They've got 8 of the top 100 or whatever for 26, and I asked a couple guys that would know. And I was getting like, okay, they'll probably be 2, maybe 3 if they're lucky to get through. But who knows? I mean, I've said this for years. You could use NIL to really build the kind of program he wants where you develop guys. And you could say to a guy, okay, I know your signing bonus is $4 million, but what if we could get you 2? And you can go to college, you can get your degree, and then you go back into the draft a couple of years. The player you think we are and we think you are, you can go into the draft, and not only have you pocketed 2 signing bonuses at that point. You pocketed the one we're giving you and the one that you're going to get a couple years from now, which will be bigger because those go up every year, all things considered. Plus, you get an education. Plus, you're spending 3 years on a college campus rather than riding buses in Montana at 2 a.m. To me, that is the direction I think they ought to go.
I heard from somebody the last couple of days that Bo Holloway, and again, who knows, it's far out, the Nolensville commit could likely be heading to Vanderbilt and wants to play at Vanderbilt. And there's obviously that connection with, I'm not sure if he played for the Nolensville Little League team, but we know about Scott Brown and his son playing for that team, and the connection with a lot of the Nolensville players. I mean, the McIlvains as well from down there. But just for reference, the slot value of obviously the number 1 overall pick last year, $10 million. the number 10 overall pick, $6 million. So really, if you go in the top 10, it's probably going to be hard to get you to come to Vanderbilt. But if you're outside, like pick number 15, the Mariners last year was $4.8 million. Maybe there's a discussion there. But you get outside the top 15 into the later first round picks, 4, 3, high 3, and then you even get into high 2s. Then that's where you're talking. And Chris, that's where a lot of them have come. Yeah. I think Sal Stewart was a late first, early second. A lot of these guys are late first, early second, and Vanderbilt can't compete money wise. I mean,
well, and if I can cut you off, I've got to go in a minute, but losing all those kids in the 22 class was a killer, and probably one of the main reasons the program is where it is right now. Had you done that and been able to make a reasonable offer, you're probably not going to be able to match the signing bonus that a lot of those guys get, but maybe you can make it close enough where with all those things I mentioned, you get a kid to take it. They get a Noah Schultz or a Sal Stewart through the draft, and on this roster right now, the season looks different than it does.
Oh, no doubt. Chris, one more before I let you go here. Cousin CJ, any ideas on who will replace Demarion Thomas? Any chance he returns? I'll answer the first part there. I know you've got there's going to be guys transferring out today, right? We've already seen it with Cam Johnson. But the defensive line specifically is slightly concerning, and it's a little surprising that Demarion Thomas would enter. I know we saw the tweet from who was it? Zaylen Wood. Oh, right.
Yeah, they got deleted.
Yeah. And I know you had it was interesting talking, you behind the scenes yesterday for whatever you can share of that.
Well, I'm just going to say I don't think it was a complete shock that, did Demarion Thomas hit the portal. I thought their line, I think they've actually started to develop better bodies and more of them than they have in a while, and he was going to be one of them. Yeah. I have no idea where it goes next.
All right, Chris, I've got a few more. I'll get those answered, but thanks for taking the time.
Lucy asks in the chat, do you think King's hire was Corbin choosing his replacement with intention of retiring? No, I don't hear anything that indicates he's about to step away.
No.
What I heard, I think, and this is the one thing maybe I think people ought to take away, I don't think that he is as blind to a lot of realities as people perceive. I don't think they went into this wanting to build a slap-hitting team. I think what happened is you have guys that just have not developed. I mean, I would have thought Holcomb had maybe 10 home runs by now. I would have thought R.J. Austin would have hit 5 or 6. You just have a lot of guys that are very much on the low end of their power output. I don't think it is I'm sure some of it is a philosophical thing. I don't think it was let's line up and beat everybody with singles and sack bunts and steals. So I think between that and, the way they're recruiting, a guy on his way out is not recruiting at that level. I just don't have any indication. People that I talk to that usually know these things, there is no sense that he is ready to walk away.
I will second that.
All right. Thank you, Billy. I've got to get out of here.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
All right. That's Chris Lee, publisher here over at Vandy247.com. I'm going to wrap it up real quick with some more of these mailbag questions, do my best to give you some answers. Again, back to Demarion Thomas, who will replace him? I think you're going to bring in a transfer. And again, I wouldn't be stunned if Zaylen Wood hits the portal today either, honestly. He had the cryptic tweet. We've heard some murmurs on that defensive line. But again, they've got depth there. I like Aaron Bryan. I like Iswa Taha. Even Nikhil Jefferson as well. I think they've got some decent depth there. But they'll bring in there's been a lot of not visitors, but a lot of discussions and connections with Vanderbilt potential defensive linemen in the Twitter sphere. So, again, it'll be a portal guy. It'll likely be a portal guy to replace Thomas. And then if Zaylen Wood leaves, another portal guy probably. I mean, that's how you do it. Let's see here. Vandy fan Pate, how do you feel about coaches reporting players? And rumor was that Dan Lanning tipped off Tennessee. Could this be a way coaches and schools fight back against the Wild West of the NIL era? I like it. I mean, I don't think Nico's going to Oregon, so that's probably why Lanning tipped him off, and obviously Lanning and Heupel are close. But I do think, and I mentioned this a couple of days ago on my daily show with George Plaster, that I think that situation, that example there between Lanning and Heupel, that could help to mend what's going on with these coaches being smart enough to stop some of this. And like you said in your question, you're to fight back against the Wild West. I think that is a good start to these coaches starting to wake up and starting to maybe change the way they act and the way. It's not going to be everybody. It's not a normal situation. If Lanning wanted Nico, he probably wouldn't have done that, right? But again, I do think that's a sign that maybe coaches can help change this Wild West. Gmail. When will the baseball program be good enough to go to Omaha instead of simply hosting a regional? It's a good question. I mean, this year, I don't think they are an Omaha team. I think at the very best, a super regional team. I think they could host a regional, no doubt, this year. I think this weekend would, if you get this win over Georgia, you're really looking at just a couple more series wins down the road. So I just think, like Chris said, you get guys out of the draft to avoid the big leagues and to sign a big NIL deal to come to campus. And it starts with next year's recruiting class. We'll see what happens. But 2026 is massive. That's a really, really elite recruiting class that's going to be coming in. I think 2-3 years away. I mean, there's just a lot of repair that I think needs to happen. Not drastic repair. They're still a top 25 program. And I think in the right year, bounces go your way. You have a little bit of luck on your side. Maybe the bracket breaks your way and you end up, squeezing an Omaha run in there. Could happen this year. I wouldn't bet on it, of course. And then again, maybe next year. But realistically, I think an Omaha trip is still a couple of years away at the earliest. Let's see here. Last chance VU. This will be the last question. Any word out there when the McGugin expansion is supposed to begin? After the south end zone is finished. I mean, that's what I would guess. I don't think you can start any of the McGugin expansion until that south end zone is done, which, again, I've heard that they are, obviously they're close, that they got to finish it before the football season. But as soon as that south end zone's done, I would guess they get started on that McGugin expansion. I know there was also talk of another indoor facility behind McGugin. Do you remember what else was supposed to be part of that McGugin rebuild other than a weight room? New practice field, of course, outdoor practice field, new indoor practice field, and then obviously a new weight room, all kinds of amenities there. I mean, the old McGugin is no longer right here in a couple of years. So yeah, that's what I got. And again, sorry about Chris. He had to leave there a little bit early. But really appreciate you guys hopping in here today. And again, anytime you want to fire away comments or questions, feel free to. I do want to give a shout out to our basketball sponsor. Had a lot of basketball talk today. The Wash House. Are you dreading laundry day? Is it stealing time to do the things that you truly enjoy? Well, let the laundry professionals at the Wash House take care of that for you. They've got 2 locations in Nashville. Just drop off your dirty laundry, and the professional attendants can give you back the one thing you can never have enough of, your time. Within 24 hours, you can pick up your nicely folded, fresh and clean laundry, ready to be put away. Log on to washhouseclean.com or stop in today and get your time back. Give the podcast review, 5-star rating. That helps us get noticed. If you're listening and haven't subscribed to the site yet, Vandy247.com, please do. Got an annual subscription, monthly subscription. It's the best place for Vanderbilt sports. Also, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Like this video. Fire away your comments and questions anytime you would like to. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you again soon with more episodes of the Vandy 24/7 podcast.